Hey guys, what's up? So I hope you have watched the economics 1.1 video, and if you have not, please watch it before watching this. And this is an academy where you're watching all these awesome videos. This is economics 1.2, and we are still continuing with the introduction. Sorry for that, it's a bit long introduction presented by me, and I'm trying to impart very high quality, accessible education where each and every one of you can get educated. And if you want to know more, you can read online. Please spread the word of this education revolution in the form of an academy. And if you have any query or if you have any doubt, please comment below the video on YouTube or on the Facebook page. That is facebook.com/my name romansaini.official. Now moving forward, basically we have dealt with the resources, which books to read, which books not to read. Then we have also dealt with certain things called as strategy and your approach. Then we have dealt with the syllabus, and then we have also dealt with what topics to be covered and why do you need to study economics. So now we will see what type of questions are asked in the examination. Either they can be static, which means that even if you have studied in 1980 or 1990, you will be able to solve most of them unless the concept has changed drastically. It can be either conceptual or it can be factual. For example, what is the growth rate of India in 2004? So that is a very factual question, and that is a static question. Again, what happens if the bank rate is decreased? Then it becomes a conceptual question, but it remains a static question because bank rate has been there for quite a long time. Static means we do not change, let's say, over a period of 5 to 10 years. Obviously in 1780s economics was much different than in 1980s, but static means at least this remains stable for a decade or so. Now current based question changes almost every year, or at max they stay relevant for 2 years maximum. That after that they lose their relevance and UPSC will not ask such questions. They can be either India based, for example India focused question, what are the new schemes, economic schemes, bank sathi and whatnot. And international based, for example World Economic Forum had some meeting or some report has come out or some HDI index have come out. So all these are international current based questions. So I hope you know now 4 types of questions will be asked, and every year in prelims 10 to 18 questions are asked from last 5 years. So you can expect 2 to 3 questions from each category, like depending upon that particular year. It can be even 5 or 6 from a particular category. Now an increase in the bank rate generally indicates, so we all know that bank rate, if it is increased, then central bank really like its money. They just want to preserve as much as they can. They think that the tendencies are inflationary, so they want to control it. So central bank is following a tight money policy, so they can also do the same thing with repo rate also. The result will almost be the same. So anyway, so this is a very easy answer, but just assume that you do not know the question. So you can either the answer can be C, that they can follow easy money, or they can follow a tight money. So by elimination method you can remove A and B, so you have a good chance of getting it correct once you have removed 2. So just keep your mind open, and even if you don't know what will happen with bank rate, you can get this question correct to a degree of half, that you have 1/2 chance of getting correct. Anyway, so this is a typical conceptual question. Now this question is more or less very factual question. There is not much logic behind it, but again you can see that this is a mix of current also and some static knowledge also. So regional rural banks, they obviously will give credit assistance to rural households. It's written there. Land development banks, again expectedly by their name, but NABARD, that is National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, acts as an RBI to these RRBs. Okay, so they do not directly give grant to rural households. So answer is 1 and 3 only in this particular case. Now moving forward, now this is a typical static question. Okay, it has absolutely nothing to do with current affairs. Currency is always the most liquid thing since the time money has been invented. Then demand deposits is the second most. Savings account is a typical savings account which you have. It is not entirely liquid. Let's say you have 10 lakh rupees in your savings account. Okay, you cannot take out all of it in one go from most of the savings account. ATM usually have restriction of 40,000 per day, something like that. Even from bank you cannot take out more than 50,000 or 1 lakh. So it is liquid to certain extent, but not entirely liquid. And time deposits are like fixed deposits, etc., which you need. If you break, you will have some penalty, and even if you break, it will take 2 to 3 days to take out the money. So the liquidity is 4, 1, 3, 2. So answer in this case is this. So this is again a decently conceptual static question. Now moving forward, in the context of Indian economy, open market operations. Now it might happen that RBI has conducted some OMOs in current affairs. You might see them in news, but again typically it is a static question. But it is asked because RBI has conducted some OMOs, or because there was some inflation they conducted it, or something like that. Something happened in the economy and they did it. So either purchase or sale of government securities to either increase the money supply or to reduce the money supply in the economy, done by the Reserve Bank of India or any central bank of any government for that matter, is called as OMO. So open market in this case refers like people like you and me, and sale of securities in the open market is called as OMO. And do watch the monetary policy videos made by Ayush, and you can get the details there in much more lucid format than I'll ever teach you. Anyway, moving forward, to obtain full benefits of DD, that is demographic dividend, we have been shouting about it for last 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. We will keep on harping about it for next 1 to 2 decades. What should India do? Answer is promotion of skill development. It's a very basic question. To certain extent, you can also go with option D also, but option A is much more better than option D. So answer is A in this particular case. Again, it is more of a static question now. Earlier it was current, but now it becomes static. The terms marginal standing facility rate and net demand and time liabilities, sometimes appearing in news, are used in relation to. See, even if they are appearing in news, it has absolutely nothing to do with current affairs. Absolutely nothing to do with current affairs. They are typical static question, and every child also know that these are associated with banking operations. So answer is A. So most of the questions which I have told you are static. I have personally not dealt with the dynamic questions, that is current affair based questions, because they will change. So even if I teach you here some of them, very low likelihood that they will be repeated ever in the examination. So this is a example of a current affair question, more or less, that what are the services one can get from business correspondent. So banks are the both they do both the functions, that the beneficiaries can draw their subsidies and social security benefits, and also they enable the beneficiaries in rural areas to make deposits and withdrawals. So this is like you can solve it by common sense also. This is a current affair type question, so answer is both 1 and 2 in this particular case. And this is again, if the 12th 5-year plan was launched then and there in 2012, it was a current affair question, but now it has become more of a static question. So answer is faster, sustainable and more inclusive growth. This is a very factual type of current affair based question. So answer is D in this particular case. As you can see, factual, static now. Earlier it was current affairs, but now it will be classified as static. Now questions in GS mains. I'll just tell you the keywords and key phrases around which your answer should revolve. So what are the reasons for the huge growth of services vis-a-vis industry in the country? See what happened in 1991. LPG reforms were undertaken, and we straight away moved from primary to tertiary sector, bypassing the secondary sector, that is manufacturing or industrial base. This is one of the important reasons. Then again we had the enabling conditions. The wages were rising very highly in the western markets and they needed to outsource something. So BPO's, business process outsourcing, they emerged. But why didn't they emerge in China? Because the English speaking youth was missing there, something like that. Then again, it do not require very much high investment to come into services. But can India become a developed country without a strong industrial base? No. See, there are various reasons, because a strong industrial base is backbone of almost all the uh, developed economies. There are few exceptions also, but more or less that is the general rule. Secondly, the employability potential of manufacturing sector is much more beyond than services sector as a percentage of contribution to GDP. So we are planning to have 100 million jobs under national manufacturing policy, which is a tremendous boost to the demographic dividend of India. And this, when we have created these 100 million jobs, it will also lead to contribution of manufacturing rising to 25% of total GDP. So yeah, we have a very strong chance of becoming a developed country, but we need to have a strong industrial base. So that is how you will write an answer. It is a very analytical question. You need to critically analyze it based on facts, and figures and historical background also. While we found India's demographic dividend, we ignore the dropping rates of employability. See, the skill set which we provide to our population is not enough. It's not matching the international standard. What are we missing while doing so? So there are lots of schemes. So basically, more or less, our framework on paper is sorted out. So we have schemes like MGNREGS, then we have scheme like National Saffron Mission, National Bamboo Mission. As you all know, saffron is grown in the colder region of northern India, J&K. Bamboo is widely grown in northeast India. So these schemes focus on the local youths, etc. They are just local schemes which I am giving. MGNREGS is a national level scheme. So these are like providing employment, but their implementation, which what we are missing on. So this should be your theme of writing the answer, that we do not need much new schemes but the better implementation of the existing schemes. And where will the jobs that India desperately needs come from? See, it will obviously have to be a multifactorial answer, but mostly it will come from like Make in India campaign, foreign investment in form of FDIs and not FIIs. Then again, focus on local knowledges, development of local jobs, local employment, and development of manufacturing base. So you can touch upon lots of such aspect. Otherwise, what we were doing is like in small plot of land there will be, rather than 4 there are 8 people. So that's kind of a disguised unemployment or something like that. So even that can be counted as dropping. That can be counted as unemployed to a certain extent in economic theory. So I hope you got the crux of the answer. So as you know, Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency Land Acquisition Act have been in quite news and quite controversy. See, what happened with this act is there was 80% consent required for private projects, 70% for government projects. So if it is it's just for the conclusion purposes, if it is implemented in the right direction, it will have a good impact on industrialization, but it should also take care of that the agricultural community is not affected, the agricultural growth is not hampered. That is, the development of industry should not happen on the cost of agricultural development, and obviously it should lead to fair compensation. The present government wanted to remove this consent clause, as you all know, and there was stiff opposition to it, and that's why it could not happen, and it's still in limbo. But anyway, this was the crux of my answer. And what constraints, sorry, and challenges do financial institutions supplying agricultural finances face in the context of agricultural finance in India, and how can technology be used to better reach and serve clients? So, financial institutions face constraints basically in the form of political loan waivers. What happens is, whenever the elections are near, a huge amount of loan waiver is announced, which promotes what is called as financial indiscipline, and that kind of support is not really needed for the growth of agriculture in India. Rather, we should try to promote them with the help of good seeds and whatnot to begin with. We should not like handle their situation only when it becomes worse and they are overburdened with loan. And we can allow also loan, and the EMIs can be reduced so that they can pay easily. That is basically loan restructuring, etc., etc. How can technology be used to reach and serve better rural clients? See, what happens is you can have something called as Kisan call centers, where they can call, and after giving a basic information about the type of soil, the type of equipment they have, they can inquire about what type of crops they can grow. For example, through SMSs, see, the telephone penetration in India, mobile penetration is 900 million. That is roughly 80% of Indians have mobile phones. So you can easily send an SMS saying that the monsoon this year will be bad. So rather than growing rain loving crops, you do something called as drought crops like bajra, ragi, even maize to a certain extent. So these kind of crops can be grown, so they can be saved a lot of trouble later on. And similarly, they can call on a call center about knowing about almost everything. Then you can promote on Doordarshan, radios, and whatnot. So yeah, this way the technology can be used to better reach them. And this was successfully proven in erstwhile Andhra Pradesh, now Telangana, which is on the leeward side of Eastern Ghats. And we also have the coastal, it is Rayalaseema region, the Vishakhapatnam and all, which are present on the windward side of Eastern Ghats. So they can be replicated on pan India level. Also, there is a case study from Karnataka. So this is how, if you write, you will get a very good score of about 7 out of 10 marks, roughly speaking. Now explain how PPP agreements in longer gestation infrastructure projects can transfer unsuitable liabilities to the future. So what happens in PPP, basically government does not have necessary technology or investment or human resources or whatever you want to call it, or experts. So they rope in the private sector and they ask it to make these, like example, roads, bridges, highways, ports, etc., whatever. Now what happens is private sector, since it is motivated by profit and profit alone, it tends to overcharge, and it transfers this overcharge liabilities to future generations, which is bad for any say like environmental problems and whatnot. What happens is now government can rope in and they provide initial funding in the form of viability gap funding or VGF. And now what happens is through this viability gap funding, initial short term loss may be borne by the government, but later on private sector can also earn decent enough profits, so there are no future liabilities being transferred, and government is also happy and the private sector is also happy. So I think this suffices our answer. Now, National Urban Transport Policy emphasizes on moving people instead of moving vehicles. Discuss critically the success of various strategies of the government in this regard. So I'll just give you a basic intro that basically they are focusing on public transport more than the private transport. See, private transport is bad for environmental purposes. Then again, it leads to a lot of fuel consumption also. So bad for economy. We need to import that fuel. So public transport, and for example, in case of Delhi or Bombay, you have metros and locals. So that can be called mass rapid transport system. Similarly, Ahmedabad has a beautiful bus rapid transport system, so you can focus on these particular things. And yeah, they have been decently successful in various regards. I'll not go into details, maybe just because an introductory video, so I'll not go into that much detail. This is the last question for today in this video. In the villages itself, no form of credit organization will be suitable except the cooperative society. See, whenever such sweeping statements are given, generally they are not correct. They are partially correct. You can say cooperative society caters to a large mass, etc. But till today, that is not true in certain sense of the word. Since 1970s, government has been trying in the form of regional rural banks, Indian postal offices, and all these provide loans to farmers. But what they need some KYC norms for, and you need to be financially literate a bit so that you can form this bank account. Obviously for cooperative society it's much easier, you just go there and you sell your product without any KYC norms, without anything, so ease of access is much more there. And there is also something called a scheduled cooperative banks, which you can talk about in this answer. So you should know in what aftermath it came. Kurian sir died, and till also Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana came, which had like 2,500 rupees overdraft, so that at least farmers can open bank account, which leads to more than 10 crore bank account being opened, which was a world record in itself. So these are the factors around which it should revolve. You can say yes, cooperative society play a good role, but the fact that no form of credit organization will be suitable, that is wrong. So I hope you got something from it. Avoid these books at all cost. Like book resources mentioned plus Unacademy tutorials. Even if you don't read any book from now, Unacademy tutorials will have complete coverage of economy. You just need to focus on current affairs. You can avoid Dutt and Sundaram. You can avoid Pratyogita Darpan. To a certain extent, you can avoid economic and politically weekly also. Uma Kapila you may or may not read depending upon your taste. If you have time, go for it. If you don't have time, don't go for it. Just remember that understanding economy is the key in economics. Okay, always remember, rather than facts and figures, you should focus on understanding the concepts. For example, they will never ask what is economic growth. They will always ask why there is inflation or why there is a slowdown in economy, something like that. And please make a note of all current happenings like schemes, committees, reforms, land policies, laws, etc. And don't fret too much about graphs, curves and figures. They will just come and go. Don't you worry about that. So I hope you like the tutorial. Do spread the word about Unacademy and be a part of this free online education revolution about accessible education. And do hit the thumbs up. Do like the video. It really helps us in getting up there. so that the bad content, the BS content can go down and this can go up. Anyway, this is the Facebook page and this is my Facebook page, and these are the Twitter handles @unacademy, @romanseni. If you have any doubt, you can ask. Do spread the education for all revolution, and thank you for watching the tutorial. Have an awesome day.